Let's go. Oh, oh. Yo, sheet. So I got the Ally X, but I was wondering if there's anything worth upgrading. Wait a second. What's that? Huh? Oh, nothing. Nothing. You didn't see anything. I'm pretty sure that looked like the new Xbox Ally X, bro. Where did you get that? You gotta tell me all about it. Shh, yo, be quiet. You're about to get me in trouble. I'm not supposed to show this until October 15th. Yeah, that's today. So go ahead. Tell me what you think. All right, fine, man. Take a seat. I got you. For full disclosure, this device was gifted to me by Microsoft, but they are not seeing this video before it goes live, and all of the thoughts and opinions are completely my own. Now, I know with a name like the Xbox Ally X, you may think that this is just some one-off or limited edition of the Ally X, but that is not the case. It is actually the official successor to the original Ally X. And there are actually a few key players that came together to make this device: ASUS, Microsoft, Xbox, AMD, and it seems like their goal is to combine each of their expertise in order to make the ultimate PC gaming handheld and console experience. And I think that the experience is the most important part when it comes to a PC gaming handheld, which is primarily why my favorite handheld has always been the Steam Deck OLED for a while now. Like, it's just so easy to use and it's comfortable to play. So for the last several days, I've been putting that experience to the test so I can help you decide if upgrading from another handheld like the Steam Deck or the Legion Go is worth it, or if choosing this as your first PC gaming handheld is right for you. Because just like you, I was so hyped to learn that this was announced, I kept reading the different articles about its features and checking Reddit threads, seeing all the different questions and some of the misconceptions that people had about this device. I even put together a list of common questions that I saw, and I tried to answer them all throughout this video. But without further ado, let's get right to it. So hopping right into the design and specs, you can see that the design is actually very similar to the original Ally X. It's pretty much like they took the design of the Ally X, added grips to it, and we'll talk more about that later, and they made a little bit of other small changes. You have the same asymmetrical thumbstick layout, D-pad, display, face buttons, rear buttons are all pretty much exactly the same, but there are some slight button differences, and there's some new buttons as well. On the top left here, you can see that there's a new Xbox button, which does things like launching the Xbox game bar and opening a task view. Next to it, you have the Armory Crate button, which is the same button as on the Ally X. Underneath that, you just have a context menu button, so it's like your settings button. And then on the right side, top right, you have a library button, which takes you directly to your game library. And then underneath that is another context menu button. The volume rocker on the top of the device is slightly different from the Ally X, and the triggers themselves are a bit larger and easier to press thanks to the new grips. I do love the subtle added touch of the ROG Xbox etched into the face of this device as well, but I do wish they gave us a slightly larger screen or at least smaller bezels because they are pretty chunky. Now, as far as the hardware tech specs goes, there are also a lot of similarities to the Ally X with some changes as well. The Xbox Ally X has 24 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, same as the Ally X. It has a 1TB M2 SSD, which can easily be upgraded if you open up the device. An 80 watt-hour battery, again, same as the original Ally X. But these triggers are actually different. They're impulse triggers that also give haptic feedback. And the display is the same as the Ally X. It's a 7-inch 1080p 120Hz refresh rate IPS display with variable refresh rate. Now, I do wish that this had an OLED screen since I love the Steam Deck OLED screen so much, but I'm aware that that would probably make the price of this device even higher than it already is. Overall, I still think that it's a really good display, and having VRR, something that the Steam Deck actually doesn't have, is a huge plus when it comes to smooth gameplay. So yeah, overall, what really stands out for the design and hardware of this device compared to its predecessor is the new Z2 Extreme CPU and the controller grips, which make it so much more fun and comfortable to hold. Speaking of grips though, let's talk about the overall user experience and the software. After I got things set up and downloaded some games, I will say that it was extremely hard to put this thing down once I started gaming. I was playing it on the couch, in the kitchen, in bed. Yeah, I just could not stop playing it. It was so fun. The grips make it so much more comfortable to hold compared to the original Ally X, which I thought was one of the worst handhelds when it comes to ergonomics without using like a third-party case or anything like that. One question I saw online is that people were wondering how do these grips compare to an Xbox controller, and honestly I wondered the same thing. Holding the Xbox Ally X does not feel exactly like an Xbox controller, but it is still very, very comfortable. If we compare them side by side, you can see that the Xbox controller grips are slightly more flared out, which I do think makes it even more comfortable to hold, and it's just a natural position for your hands to rest in. The grips on the Xbox Ally X are more vertical, but this honestly didn't bother me at all. Also, the weight of this handheld is distributed so well that honestly my hands and arms never felt tired even after really long gaming sessions. The face buttons themselves aren't too loud and they're actually really satisfying to press, And the joysticks feel really smooth and easy to control, especially for someone like me with larger hands. I really hate those tiny joysticks on the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, for example. I will say though that the back buttons are pretty clicky and louder than on the Ally X, but maybe it was because my Ally X has this case around it, so that dampens the sound a little bit. But yeah, this was definitely something I noticed during gaming, but I got used to it after a bit. I do wish though that these back buttons were a little bit bigger so that you could easily press them in different positions. Right now, they're pretty much the size of my fingertips, so it doesn't give me much flexibility when moving my fingers around. If you want to position your hands differently, you're gonna have to place them right on the buttons themselves. But personally, I didn't have any real trouble pressing these back buttons, and hopefully other reviewers and gamers have the same experience. Unfortunately though, I did have some trouble on the software side of things, at least at first. So since I got this device early, I had a really long process on how to set this device up. I had to go through the normal Windows setup process, which had a bunch of screens that were unrelated to gaming, and when the device booted up itself, it went straight into the Windows desktop mode, and I had to install a ton of updates. Like, the whole process took like 3 or 4 hours. And then I was finally able to use the new true Xbox full screen experience. Good news for you though is that if you decide on getting this device, you won't have to do any of that I just described. The Xbox Ally X should already come with the optimized setup process right out of the box. This means that your setup process should skip the unnecessary Windows setup screens that don't have to do with gaming, and it should automatically boot into the Xbox full screen experience, which is much better and way easier to navigate than Windows desktop. Also, quick tip here, you should definitely enable the fingerprint scanner on the top of the power button here so that you can use that instead of having to enter your PIN every time you need to log in. It makes turning on this device and just picking it up to play so much easier. Now let's talk about Windows for a bit, because to this day, I think that one of the weak points of Windows-based PC handhelds was Windows itself. Windows as an operating system in general is just not really optimized for gaming. It could be so much better. It has a ton of bloatware and processes that can take up unnecessary resources that should be freed up for actual gaming. And on a PC gaming handheld, it's even worse because the resources aren't as powerful as your desktop PC. That's why when this device was announced, I was really excited to hear that this was the exact issue that they were going to solve. After updating and resetting the device, I was really surprised how quick the new optimized setup flow was. It took a few minutes to boot up, and then all I did was log into my Xbox account and the new Xbox full screen experience launched immediately. No more Windows desktop. Let's go. This was a much better experience because it also meant that I could use the gamepad during the entire setup process and didn't have to fiddle around with the touchscreen. Now, diving into this new Xbox full experience UI, my first impressions was that it reminded me of the Xbox console navigation, except with all of the menu tabs to the left instead of at the top. On the left menu bar from top to bottom, you have your account settings, the home screen to see featured and new games, the Game Pass tab, My Games and Apps where you can see all of your installed games and apps on the device, no matter which store or launcher, cloud gaming, and then lastly, the store. But it's not just a fancy UI change either. With this device, they've actually claimed to build the full screen experience with a more optimized focus on gaming, meaning they've minimized background activity and deferred non-essential tasks to give the system more resources dedicated to gameplay. This is exactly what we need. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to test this, but I definitely want to dive deeper into this and make a follow-up video. Also, quick reminder, if you are finding this video helpful, I'll definitely be making more videos on the Xbox Ally X, so be sure to like and subscribe. The next step for me was to download all of my games, and most of them are on Steam. And in order to get to Steam, you go to the My Games and Apps section, then Apps, and then you can see all of your game launchers in stores here. GOG, Epic, Steam, you name it. When you launch Steam from here, I like how it opens up big picture mode automatically, and then I can just go ahead and install all the games and play them directly. Once you install games from Steam or any other launcher or store, they will also show up in the My Game section of the Xbox Full Experience, so you won't have to open that specific launcher to play your game. You can access all of them from the Xbox Full Screen Experience itself, which is really handy. Now, I know this is not really anything new because Armory Crate pretty much does the same thing, but it is nice to have this all integrated with Microsoft. Another handy tool is this new Xbox button on the left here. This button brings up the Xbox game bar and allows you to go to recent games, change some of your settings, and other stuff pretty quickly. You can also press and hold this button to enter the task view where you can see all of the apps that you currently have open, switch between them, and even close them, all using the gamepad itself. No touchscreen required. Also, if you ever actually need to use the Windows desktop mode, you can select it right here. Going through the other buttons we have, on the top left is the Command Center button, which opens up a medium-sized menu where you can change even more advanced settings about the device. things like your button mapping, performance mode, game profiles, and performance monitoring. You can also open up Armory Crate from this menu, which, if you're familiar with the original Ally X, is similar to the full Xbox experience where you can access all of your game and launchers, but you also have access to those more advanced settings and configs that I mentioned before. In general, you want to go to the Armory Crate when you want to change advanced settings like the TDP or how much RAM the device is using, settings like that. Now, it does seem like there's some overlap between the Xbox full experience and the Armory Crate. I do wonder if some of the features of Armory Crate will be phased out or integrated into the Xbox app itself as this device matures, but only time is going to tell. The only other new-ish button on this device is the library button, which takes you directly to your games and apps library on the Xbox app. And I'm not gonna lie, it is pretty nice to have a button that goes directly to your game so you can access it from anywhere. I was really surprised on how overhauled this experience was. It was pretty easy to find my games and change apps, but I did notice a few stutters and slowness in the UI. Like when I was in Steam Big Picture mode for some reason, the top and bottom edges would sometimes just get cut off entirely. But then when I launched the game, everything was fine. This could be because I was using an early version of this, but if not, hopefully these small issues like this can get fixed soon before the device hits shelves. Now, one thing about this experience that I do want to call out, and people have discussed this online a bit, you cannot just pick up and play all of your games from your Xbox library on this device. You can play games that you have on Game Pass or also digital games that are marked as Play Anywhere, and everything will get synced no matter where you play, PC, the Xbox Ally X, or your Xbox console. But if you bought a physical disc or a digital game on your Xbox that does not support the Play Anywhere, then you won't be able to play that game natively on this device unless you buy it again, either by buying the Play Anywhere version or some other version on another store. You can, however, stream any game that is on your Xbox console to this device using Xbox Remote Play. Just to be clear on this, here's a quick list of some of the different ways that you can play games on this device. You have native gaming, which includes all of your PC games from any storefront or launcher like Steam or Epic or GOG. You download these games and play them on the device itself. You have Xbox Game Pass games that can pretty much be played across any device, Xbox Remote Play like I mentioned before, and Xbox Cloud Gaming, which allows you to stream games from your Xbox library when you're away from home. I wish I had enough time to try out all of these different ways to play before this video, but I was only able to really focus on gaming natively on the device itself. But definitely let me know in the comments if you want to learn more about this and I can make a follow-up video. Now, the last feature that I want to discuss related to the gaming experience of this device is their new handheld compatibility program. This is pretty much like Steam verified games if you're familiar with that. Basically, if you look at games in your library or the store, some of them will have distinct badges that tell you whether the game has been optimized for handheld or if it's just compatible. Games that are handheld compatible still work fine, but they may require small tweaks in the settings to get the best experience. This is really helpful because not only does it allow us gamers to know how well a game will work on a device, but it encourages developers and game studios to optimize their games for handheld so more people will buy their games and we can get the best experience. However, these badges alone don't signify the performance that you'll get when running the game. There's actually a separate indicator for that, and it's called Windows Performance Fit. The Windows Performance Fit will say should play great, meaning that this game should achieve at minimum 60 frames per second on the handheld, or should play well, meaning that this game should get at least 30 FPS. So with the handheld compatibility program and Windows Performance Fit combined, you can tell which games are best optimized and have the best performance. If a game says it's handheld optimized and should play great, then you're all good to go. Quick water break. Now, all of this is a huge step in the right direction, and I really look forward to seeing more games optimized and labeled correctly. And also, I look forward to other tweaks and enhancements that they make to boost the performance when gaming or just make this device easier to play in general. Now, for this next section, I wanted to get into performance, and I was really excited to show you what the real in-game performance would look like with the new Z2 Extreme chip versus the Z1 Extreme on the original Ally X. I tried running 3 different games. It was Marvel Rivals, Helldivers, and Borderlands 4, and I set the performance mode on each device to the max. The games ran absolutely fine on the new Xbox Ally X, and I was playing them for hours, but I actually didn't see any performance increase. In fact, there were even times where I saw a performance loss on the new Xbox Ally X. But please take this with a grain of salt because I think that I was actually doing something wrong in this process, because I saw other reports online for people that compared these two chips on other devices, and they saw at least a slight improvement in performance when comparing these chips, and an even bigger performance boost when comparing them at lower power consumptions. Right now I'm like 70 or 80% sure that this was my issue, but it also could be that this chip is just really new and the drivers aren't updated yet, or maybe the games that I tested weren't the best use cases. So let me take some more time and actually find out what I did wrong, or if it was just a driver update. I can wait for those to come out. I'll have some better real in-game performance benchmarks, I promise you. I was able to run 3D Mark, however, to get some synthetic benchmarks, and at least this did show an increase for the Z2 Extreme versus the Z1 Extreme. Again, both devices were plugged in and on turbo performance mode. I ran the Steel Nomad Lite benchmark, and what I saw is that there was actually a 16% increase in total score for the Z2 Extreme and about a 4 FPS difference in performance. For now, I'm going to trust this benchmark a lot more than my in-game testing because it shows that nothing is actually wrong with the hardware itself. So again, it was either a me problem or maybe a driver update or a game problem. I'll also say that during all of my testing, I never found the physical device itself to get hot at all. The back of this device stayed pretty cool to the touch, even though the internal temperatures were above 70 degrees Celsius while gaming. And when I was using turbo mode, the fans were definitely loud, but it makes sense because that's where the device is power hungry and heating up the most. When I was playing in balanced or silent mode, playing games like Hades or Celeste, which are lighter titles, I barely actually noticed or heard the fans at all. For battery life testing, I played a lighter game like Celeste on silent mode, and then a AAA game to see what the low and high bounds were for battery life. First, I played Celeste for 20 minutes, and the battery drained only 7% in those 20 minutes, meaning it should last a little bit over 4.5 hours. And then I played Borderlands 4 for 20 minutes, and the battery drained about 17% in those 20 minutes, meaning that if I kept playing this, it would last about just under 2 hours. So on the high end, when it comes to battery life, you could expect to get 5 hours if you're playing lighter games, probably even more than that if you manually lower the TDP a bit more. And at the absolute extreme, if you're playing a AAA title at the max power consumption, then yeah, it's gonna last under 2 hours. But that makes sense because those games are really intense to run. The battery inside this device itself is the same as the Ally X. It's an 80 watt hour battery, and it also comes with a 65 watt charger, just like the Ally X, so you can get about 80% charge in just like an hour. So overall, the battery life is definitely respectable, but it's gonna depend on what games you're playing and what performance modes you're using. Now let's get into my overall thoughts on this device. I'll quickly summarize what I think this new Xbox Ally X does really well, but also areas that I think that it could be a little bit better. First, the design and comfort of this thing is phenomenal. They really hit it out the park with this one, and adding the grips was a huge change for this device. It feels so much more comfortable and fun to play, and I think that it's a bit lighter than even my Steam Deck. The Xbox full screen experience is another area that I think is great. The optimized setup process so that you can get right into gaming, booting into the full screen experience immediately is so helpful. The addition of the Xbox button I think is also good. It makes switching between games and apps so easy. Having more control over the system using only the gamepad is so much better than having to fiddle around with the touchscreen and use the Windows desktop UI. Here are some areas where I think the Xbox Ally X could be better though. Like I said before, sometimes I found the UI to be a little bit slow or buggy, but hopefully this gets fixed soon, or maybe I was just using an early version. There was times where I was using the task view to try to close some games, but they just got stuck and there was really no obvious way to force close it. And then sometimes when I was trying to load into a game itself using the Xbox full screen experience, it would take a little bit longer than I thought it should. So the experience definitely still has some room for growth to be as simple and clean and intuitive as SteamOS, but it is definitely a great step in the right direction. I also think that the separation between Armory Crate and the Xbox Full Experience app could be a little bit better. Honestly, I think that maybe removing some of the features from Armory Crate and including them into the Xbox experience would make it simple and easier for people to use. Another thing that was kind of annoying to deal with on this device is all of the updates that I had to go through. Now, I know I went through more updates than probably a regular user would because I had to go through this setup process because I was an early user, but managing all of those updates was just really bad. I don't know if this is possible, but I do really wish that there was just one place that you could manage all of your updates. Right now, you have updates in the Microsoft Store to update the Xbox app. You have updates in the Armory crate, which updates like your driver and BIOS. And then you also have Windows updates on top of all of that. And all of these are important to keep track of. Meanwhile, on the Steam Deck, all I really have to do is worry about Steam client updates and game updates. And that's pretty much it. Again, I know that this is probably something that's going to be really hard or maybe even impossible to solve just because there are so many different brands and companies that come together to make a device like this. So the more integration, the better. The more cooperation, the better experience for gamers. So, is the Xbox Ally X right for you? Is this the ultimate PC handheld gaming experience? I will say that this is by far the best Windows PC gaming handheld experience that I've ever gotten to test and ever gotten to use, really. And while it's not perfect yet, I am confident that things will continue to move in the right direction. I was actually invited and attended the media gathering for this device. I met personally with members from the AMD, Microsoft, and ASUS team. All of them were so helpful and kind and answered so many questions that I had about the device. And I found one thing that was common no matter who I spoke to. Everyone on the team repeatedly stated how this is a long-term partnership between the companies, and they are dedicated to making the gaming experience better and better. They even share new features that are coming to this device early next year, like automatic super resolution and upscaling to enhance performance across your games, and better game library management when you have games on your SD card. Just like ASUS have been releasing consistent updates for the original Ally X, they'll continue to push the Xbox Ally X forward as well. Now, whether this device is right for you, I think it's going to depend on your budget, because $1,000 is definitely not cheap, but compared to competitor options, especially ones with the Z2 Extreme chip, it is within the same range or sometimes even cheaper. If you already have a device that has a Z1 Extreme chip or something of similar performance and you're looking to get just a boost in performance, like that's all you care about, I don't think that this device is worth it. I think that you should get this device if you care about a good performance boost, but also better ergonomics and a better user experience in general. If you're tight on budget but still want a pretty performant gaming handheld, then I would go for a used or new regular ROG Ally X. Now you won't get the Xbox full screen experience, unfortunately, but the performance will still be really good compared to the other handhelds out there. And if you do prioritize that better performance but still want to save a little bit of money, then you can go for the regular ROG Xbox Ally in white. Just be aware that this comes with the Z2A chip, which is not as powerful as the Z2 Extreme chip. It's not even more powerful than the Z1 Extreme. Anyways, I really appreciate you for watching. Hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you on the next one.